everybody, Dr. Yang here, and today I am going to walk you through the expectations for the methods section of your paper. Not because I expect that you will have this done anytime soon, but we are going to be shifting gears in our content and talking about things like sampling, like we covered last week, but also how we set up and understand our data. And so I wanted you to have a chance to workshop with your group a little bit and start thinking about what you're going to measure and how you're going to measure it, so that as we are moving through these next couple of classes, you can be thinking about your study specifically. So I really do want you to sort of sketch out or jot down the ideas that you have about how you will complete the methods section of your paper. It's not due for a while. But my hope is that this will prime you so that you can get the most out of the readings and the classes that we have to come. So as you're thinking about this paper, I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know. But this section of the paper needs to be about 8 to 10 pages long. So in those 8 to 10 pages, you are going to talk to me about a lot of different things. First and foremost, there's a template for you on Blackboard. Be sure to use the template. Okay, it's going to help you organize it and set it up with a structure that is going to make the most sense, and it's going to help you really organize your thoughts. So use that. You have it available to you. It is a great resource. Make sure that you use it. The other thing I want you to know is that I want you to really spell all of these sections out with a lot of detail. Okay, so I want to talk you through what sections need to be in here. Again, I don't expect you to have these answers right now. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to have is your sample. For almost all of you, your sample will be 12 people. That is the 12 people who are in our class who are not in your group. If for some reason you decide that your group also wants to take the survey and keep that data anonymous, you can do that and have a sample of 15. But just to keep it simple and organized, I encourage you to sample your classmates other than your group, okay? Remember, each group is going to have a different sample, and that's okay because you are all going to sample the class minus you. Okay, so when you're describing this, you are going to tell me things like you have a convenient sample because you used the participants that were available to you. You had a purposive sample because you intentionally wanted to understand the college student perspective or the social work student perspective on whatever your particular issue is. So most of you are going to, well, actually all of you are going to have a non-probability sample because there is no way amongst us that you can have randomization. But you're going to lean into those non-random, convenient, and purposive sampling types. I encourage you to Google or go into the Dacus library and find examples of studies that have used convenient and purposive methods and see how they have written this up in the sampling section. But if you have any questions, obviously, I will be more than happy to help you with that. So that's what you're going to put in the sampling section. Then you are going to have a section of the paper that goes through all of the internal and external threats to validity. So when you were talking, well, I don't know what it is about you all that just makes my phone ring. This is crazy. We're not even in class. So I want you to go through all of the internal threats to validity that we talk about, not only in your book, but the ones that are in the presentation from the class on causal inference. So tell me about how those things specifically are relevant to your study, and then I want you to talk about threats to external validity. So since we're using non-random samples, you're going to talk about threats to generalization and the impact of having a non-random sample. Okay, so I want each of those threats to validity to be a subheading, and I want you to talk through that. I want you to define it. I want you to use your book, and I want you to make the connections to your specific study. Okay. I know that this feels like a lot, but it's important to remember that as competent and ethical researchers, we always need to consider the way that our data can be threatened. So there should be 7 threats to internal validity that you identify and explore for your study, and 3 to external. Okay, so you're going to have 10 explorations of threats. I want you to define the threat. So you would tell me something like testing bias is blah, 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 blah. This is or is not relevant to my study because blah, 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 blah. I want you to use citations when you talk about what the threat is, meaning your book. And then if you have an example of a study where it has been threatened, you can cite that, but otherwise you don't have to cite that particular piece. Okay. Next, you are going to talk to me about instrumentation. Now, a lot of you are not at this point yet, and that's okay, but I want you to start thinking about how are you going to measure the variables in your study. Now, in the grading of part 1, which depending on when you watch this, you may or may not have, I might have given you some suggestions about how you might measure your data. Some of you, it might make sense to use a pre-existing survey and just adapt that. Others of you are going to have to make up your own. So check for that feedback, but if you are not sure, ask me, okay? So when we talk about instruments, if you have a pre-existing measure, you're going to have to describe it to me, talk to me about how it's been used in the literature, give me a citation for its use in the past, that sort of thing. If you're making up your own, you need to describe the measure that you have created. And so I encourage you to go out into the literature and find examples of surveys, of questionnaires that have been tested and how they have described it. Now you're going to see lots of stuff about Chromebox Alpha, and you don't have to do all that, but you want to describe the instrument. If you have a copy of the instrument, which you should by the time this is submitted, you want to put that in an appendix to this paper so that I can scroll down and see what your instrument is. Then you want to talk through each of your variables in the study. Okay, so you want to, like, for example, if race was a variable in your study, or age, right? A lot of you talked about college students. So maybe you could talk about college student status, and then each of the attributes would be the grade levels, right? So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate, non-traditional, whatever. So you want to think about all of those, all of the variables, all of the ways you are capturing those variables, and then tell me what level of measurement it is. Okay? So don't just say, we measured college education level and the attributes for this were freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate, non-traditional, and this represents ordinal measurement. You could say everything, but then you could say, this is an example of ordinal measurement because ordinal measurement is, talk about it, cite it, and then say how it applies. I want to see that you can make those connections, okay? Citations here are going to be your friend. It's okay if you're citing your book predominantly. That's totally fine, okay? You're also going to talk about the procedure in the methods section. Most of you are going to have a similar procedure, but I want you to think about walking me through step by step how you're going to conduct your project, okay? So first you're going to say something like we went through IRB approval. I am your IRB. I approved it when I read part 1. But you want to start with IRB approval. Then you say that a survey was created and distributed, data was collected from blank to blank, results were analyzed and findings were gathered. Kind of talk me through it. Think about this as a manual. If I were to pick up your study and try to recreate it somewhere else, what would I do? You want this to be very precise and very clear. Also be sure to include the code of ethics here where applicable. Okay, talk about protections for research subjects and that sort of thing. Lastly, you're going to talk about data analysis. I want you to give me your best guess as to how you are going to analyze your data. We are going to workshop this in class. That date is not right. I'm not sure exactly what the date is. So you will have support for how you are going to analyze your data by the time we get to the second workshop, okay? So everyone will have an opportunity. Everyone will have a chance for feedback and exploration for how you're going to analyze your data. But if you're already thinking about it, that's totally fine. I will be more than happy to entertain questions at any point. But you want to walk me through the type of data analysis you plan to do and why. Why is it fitting? Include a citation. Okay? All right, so here's the details, the logistics on this paper. It's due 3/17 at 11:59 in the evening as a group submission. So just like you submitted the first paper, okay? In addition to the new 8 to 10 pages that you are going to write, you also have to include revisions to part 1. So if you want to start with revisions to part 1 today, you can do that, or you can do them as you go. But don't fret, we are going to have a second workshop day on March 15th. This date is correct. Where we can nail down, this is 2 days before the draft is due, so you can really nail down your analysis, your survey stuff after we've talked more about it, and you've had the opportunity to put hands on it and start playing around with it. So again, my hope in giving you time to workshop this today was that you could work on revisions to part 1, you could start brainstorming some of these things with your group so that you can get to work on some of this and you can use it to inform the readings and coursework that we're going to be doing over the next couple of classes. So hopefully this is helpful in setting you up to be successful in using this time wisely. But certainly if folks have questions, I am just an email away and happy to entertain questions if needed. Y'all take care. Enjoy your wellness day on Wednesday, and I will see you all on Wednesday, March 8th. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.